and welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your hosts, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, and all the way from New York, effervescent Evan Ginsberg. But we also have from the other side of the coast, and that is Leonard Caplan, who hasn't been. Actually, it was literally next week would be 2 years since you've been on our show. So
Wow.
it literally has been one year and 51 weeks since you've been with us. So welcome back, Leonard. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
So I guess there's no. Usually, sometime during the week, some wrestling star passes away due to unfortunate circumstances, and we're lucky enough that a major star hasn't died this week, so we don't have to talk about anybody's recent death. But you haven't been on the show since we lost Hulk Hogan. So I am interested in hearing your thoughts about that as a starter. We can work our way backwards from there. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, my various co-hosts over the years, we've always said that if we had Hulk Hogan, that would probably have been our final episode. And it never happened, so maybe we're destined to keep on going forever now. I don't know. It's obviously very meaningful. What's that?
You could always whip out a Ouija board and do a seance.
Yes. It's history, no matter how you feel about him or what he's done or whose side you take in his various conflicts with other wrestlers. Particularly, I'm thinking of Bret Hart and other people who couldn't stand Mr. Hogan. And we started this show during the Hulk Hogan era. 1987 is when we started, and Hulkamania was going strong. And it's kind of hard to believe, somebody that larger than life. Obviously, he's mortal like everybody else. Part of his logo, I think, was the immortal Hulk Hogan, correct? He used to call himself that. So that could have sort of breaks kayfabe.
He was lying to us. He was lying to us the whole time.
I'm shocked. Breaking kayfabe, Just, it would have been nice to, we never even came close to meeting him, but everybody obviously that was ever on the show was definitely affected by him one way or the other, either in person or personally or just being in the wrestling world. Like when we had Jake the Snake on, I believe it was 2016 when we interviewed him at FanFest. He was relegated to kind of second tier or because of Hogan's very presence, in addition to his own drug problems, obviously. But, the hierarchy would have been much different if Hogan had never existed, obviously. So he had a huge, huge effect on everybody, either positively or negatively or just by existing, really.
So, Evan, do you have anything to ask Leonard, since you haven't seen him too much in the last couple of years? Maybe you have a chance to
tell us approximately how many shows have you done, and what would you consider some of the highlights? What are you proudest of? What was some of the most moving shows that you've done?
Oof, we have about, I kind of lost count somewhere along the line, but we have at least 500 shows.
Wow.
At one point we were weekly, and then we went to bi-weekly, and we went to monthly. And there were some shows that maybe were no longer than 25 or 20 minutes here and there. It was very erratic, but some of the noteworthy guests that we've had on the show were Captain Lou Albano. Obviously, our first guest was very meaningful. Walter Kowalski. And Walter Kowalski was responsible for most of our early guests in the first year. We sort of dipped into the International Wrestling Federation's roster. One of the noteworthy ones is the guy now known as Triple H. At that time, his name was Terra Rising.
What was a young Triple H like pre-corporate Vulture? What was he like?
Well, at that time, I was pretty new I was just a wrestling fan like anybody else at that time. Before I did the show, I hadn't really watched wrestling until I connected with my late partner, Paul Fay, and he got me into this thing by bringing Walter to our studio. And we did like a 90-minute thing, which I cut up into the first 5 shows of what became the show, which I didn't intend to do a series. But what was the question again? That's what happened.
What was Triple H like
Yes.
as an indie wrestler who, was relatively unknown? I'm sure there was no sense that he was going to be eventually one of the most powerful people in the industry. It's wild, really.
If you watch one of the monologues that he gave, and he sort of used us to do promos, he predicted it. He predicted that he was going to be the biggest wrestling force on earth. And he was. I don't know if you're familiar with the wrestler.
Of course, everybody says that in every promo. Every indie guy says that in every promo.
Yeah, I guess so. But he was talking to one of his opponents in our camera. He said, "Are you going to stop that, Tony Roy?" And he was just very, very believable in his promos, and very authentic, and very threatening. And at the time, my point before I lost my train of thought is I didn't know that much about kayfabe or anything like that. So I took everything he did on and off camera as the truth, So he was playing a heel, but he off camera was being a heel. He wasn't very nice to us. And at the time, I didn't know, that to keep kayfabe, to know what kayfabe was, you had to stay in character on or off camera, because anybody could be watching, anybody could be standing by, and you don't want to give the whole act away. So I thought he was kind of a mean guy. He was making fun of the show. He was teasing us. And at one time I had a T-shirt on. You'll see it if you look up that interview. He taps me at the end of the interview. He taps me on the chest. He goes, "I see you dressed up for the show," And looking back, it's very comical. But at the time, I guess my reactions were pretty real, because I was like, get rid of this guy. I didn't want him around, but I believed his heel persona. What can I say?
Interesting. So, who were some of your favorite guests?
Well, obviously, my friend, my good friend Medusa, then known as Medusa Michelli, became my friend from the get-go. Like the first minute that we met, she was teasing me, and we had a really fun time with her on the show. We had newspaper people that Paul Fay was like a natural promoter, a natural publicist, and he had like 3 newspaper people and photographers over to my studio when she first came on. So she was kind of performing to them and performing with us and to us. And there were a lot of laughs in that photo session. And one of the pictures, which I'll give you for editing if you want to put it in, is she's grabbing me, like holding me like around like this, and looks like we're kind of wrestling and stuff like that. And I had known her for like a total of like 2 or 3 minutes at the time. It's like, what is this? What am I going to do with this person? Again, I was new to the world of professional wrestling, and she was probably the 3rd person that I met that was pretty famous from wrestling. And coincidentally, I had seen her for the first time on television the very week before she came on the show, and on the AWA. So she, and we just developed a really close friendship, and to this day we talk. Sometimes we go months without talking to each other, and then all of a sudden we'll talk every day about different things. It's very, very erratic. I stayed at her house in 2011. I was a guest at her virtual wedding, also in 2011. No, 2013, I think maybe that was. And yeah, just like Evan, it has a lot of real close friends, or has had before they passed away. Beyond wrestling, I have Medusa. You know, the other people that were my heroes growing up, like Bruno Sammartino, that was quite a visit. We used to spend hours with the wrestlers before the show because we did our show live, and they would arrive on the plane from wherever they were like 2 or 3 hours earlier. So we had time to take them out to eat. And we took Bruno to the Hilltop Steakhouse, now no longer with us, was once my favorite restaurant. And I'll never forget the whole experience. I can almost remember very vividly. The limo ride with Bruno was actually scary because the limo driver was taking a shortcut from the airport to where the Hilltop was to give us more time at the restaurant. And Bruno didn't know us. He never met us before. I only talked to him on the phone, and he didn't know the limo driver. And I looked over at Bruno, and he was like looking for a way. Like I thought he was going to jump out of the car, because he said, "Where are you taking me? Where are we going?" And I tried not to panic. I think I was successful because he didn't throw me to the floor of the limo, or Paul. And he settled down, and we had a great time after that. And people, it was like being in the presence of Hollywood royalty when we were with him. People were sending over drinks, and they wanted his autograph. And when we sat down, we could feel like the whole place looking at us, And he was just so down to earth and fun to talk to, full of stories.
Since you mentioned that, I met Bruno outside the garden, and he was very gracious, talked to me, shook my hand, signed an autograph, blah, blah,
He's
blah.
in your book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's in my book, Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movies. He's on the, there he is. He's on the cover. So my point being, it was a different era back then. And today in 2025, you have WWE stars publicly stating, do not approach me outside of an official signing, like their royalty. And I'll take it a step further. Muhammad Ali, who was the most famous person in the entire world when he was heavyweight champion, he'd walk down the street and sign for everybody. And when he'd go into Harlem and neighborhoods where some of the people did not have much money, he'd hand out $20 bills. This is in the 1960s, when that was a lot of money. And so, I do understand, don't stalk wrestlers at airports at 3 a.m. with 20 photos or whatnot. But I think as well-paid celebrities, and today some of the wrestlers are literally paid millions and hundreds of dollars for their autographs at these signings. I think if you're a fan and you've supported them and you sincerely like them and it's not mercenary, I think you have every right to ask for one autograph.
Sure.
So how did he react? He's sitting at dinner and people approached him. What was his reaction?
Well, they didn't really come up to the table when we were walking by. They were doing that. He shook a few people's hands. Once we sat
I
down,
see.
they
Yeah.
didn't come over. One guy though sent over a drink, and Bruno said, "Well, I won't accept this unless I find out. I want to know who it is. I want to shake the person's hand." But the person was too shy or too afraid to come over, so Bruno sent the drink back.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what happened. That. But speaking of what you said, Evan, when Captain Lou and Burt Randolph Sugar, the late Burt Randolph Sugar, came
He
on
was
our show
colorful.
together, very nice guy, but they were very rambunctious. And up to that time, I had never met Captain Lou. I talked to him on the phone. I felt like I was with the heel Captain Lou
Hmm.
and Burt Randolph Sugar. And the reason I say that, there was a place called the Porthole Pub, which is now closed in the city of Lynn, closed a couple of years ago. We could not get them out of there. They were drinking and drinking, and there was a lot of booze. I'm not a drinker at all. I don't drink at all. But so they were kind of huddled together talking about stuff, and we had a hard time getting them to the studio after that experience. So, but my mistake with Captain Lou, he was the first out of town celebrity that I had met, because I knew Walter, because Walter Kilokowski was based out of Malden, Mass. That's where his school was, right one city away from my city in Revere. And I had a lot of friends. I was telling, hey, guess who's going to be on our show? And they all wanted autographs. So in my naivete, I asked Captain Lou for all these autographs, and he's signing and signing and signing and signing. And I'm like, by the end, I realized, oh my God, this guy's never going to talk to me again, because this is really rude, But I couldn't take it back, But he was great. I kept in touch with him for a couple of years after that, and he would have come on again, but it just wasn't in his schedule. But he took it well. I think if that was anybody else, the show probably would have ended right there, and I never would have done another episode.
I was on the road with Lou as an agent, and he was a lovely guy. He was very religious, and he had a lot of fun. We were sitting at Chilla, the big New Jersey convention, and he's
Yeah, that's
looking
just
at.
going on this weekend.
Yeah. A friend of mine went, and he's looking at all the cosplayers. They're dressed like Star Wars characters, and I'm sitting with him, and he's laughing like, look at this guy, look at this guy. Meanwhile, he's got the rubber bands in his face, love, and the Hawaiian T-shirt. He doesn't realize, he looks different than the average 9 to 5er. But he was a lovely guy, Lou, and Johnny Valiant told me a funny story. You were talking, he liked his drink a little. One time at Madison Square Garden, Lou got so drunk that he fell asleep outside the ring during a match.
Oh no!
The Valiant brothers were wrestling. Johnny told me this story, and Vince McMahon Sr. came out. This is in the '70s, and said, Sully, John, that was Johnny's real name. He said, Sully, if you don't wake this guy up, all three of you are fired. He was sleeping out. He took a bump outside the ring, and he just was lying there asleep. So Lou was colorful. Wow. I tell people,
now that's selling it. That's really selling it, though.
Yeah, being a WWF fan, from the early '70s on, I tell people all the time that Lou was the greatest manager of all time, and other people, if they were weaned on AWA, they'll tell you Heenan was the greatest manager of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all subjective.
Yeah, but without Lou Albano, you don't have the Rock and Wrestling Connection thing happen, and that he was really integral in how MTV rest its soul. Managed to make everything happen with the Wrestling Connection, the WWF and MTV. That was such a huge thing in the early 80s.
I was at the Garden the night that Piper clocked them with the plaque, the the record, whatever it was, the gold record. Yeah, that was crazy. The Heat was
That
off the
award that he
charts.
got. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
gave
yeah.
him the award.
Yeah.
And then he decked Lil Albano, and he harassed Cyndi Lauper and Peter Wolf, or you know, that other director guy, the producer, the Cyndi Lauper's producer. I remember that being such a big thing, and we talked about it in school the next day. You know, actually, I was able to get my government teacher to let me talk about it, because I said, this is a historical event. WrestleMania will be a historical event. And, you know, look a little bit later and look at it, it now is historical, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
for
know,
better and for worse. It was for the old school fans, it was the beginning of the end, and for another generation of newer fans, it was what brought them into loving wrestling. I always say that transitional phase, 84, 85, 86, with heel Piper and Orton and Snooker and Sergeant Slaughter and the Iron Sheik, there was still some great stuff. By the late 80s, excuse me, they basically threw the baby out with the bathwater. Every wrestler had a silly gimmick, and it was very cartoonish. And Randy Savage was great.
yeah, you still had Bret the Hitman Hart as part of that era, and you had Kurt Hennig as part of that era. So you still had Scott Hall, who's just coming into his own at that point in time. You know, Nash was just starting out.
But you also had a lot of great NWA and AWA guys come in, and they were squandered, absolutely squandered. And you know,
Well, that hasn't changed.
Dory Funk is Hoss Funk, and you know, it was some of it just got silly.
They were playing to the newly found audience from the Lauper Albano era. You know what I mean? They in other words, the hardcore wrestling fans go to hell. We want more money from this wider audience, and that, I think that's what that whole thing was about. You know, it's very sad and disloyal, in my opinion.
But then wrestling wouldn't have reached the heights that it got to, you know, in the 80s. And
was it worth it though? The numbers of people that enjoy it aren't really seeing what wrestling was meant to be. They're seeing a watered down version that looks like wrestling and sounds like wrestling, but it's really not the wrestling that we all remember.
WWE is embarrassed by the word wrestling. They call it sports entertainment, but entertainment is supposed to be entertaining, and I would say about 80% of the time it's not with them. Every so often they'll deliver a great match, but it's few and far between.
But we get into that debate. We get into that debate that well, not you and I, but the one that we talk about that's on the internet all the time, which is that, you know, current modern fan will say, well, wrestling is on more now, and it's more recognized and makes more money and sells more merchandise than it ever has done before. Therefore, wrestling is successful. And you know, that you know, Iron Man matches be damned. You know, it's better that we have sing-alongs and people, you know, yelling out catchphrases before every match than it is that we have, you know, the Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat hour-long, you know, Iron Man matches, or the Terry Funk versus Dusty Rhodes, you know, cage matches of the past. What do you guys have to say about that?
Well, to me, okay, when it changed over, like what we were just talking about, when they settled into the Big Four, which I always call the Big Four, the Survivor Series, the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, and SummerSlam, that was still okay, you know. But once they started having pay-per-views, or whatever you call them now, I don't think they call it that anymore.
Premium live events.
Premium live events.
And you pay a pretty premium to see it with the prices today.
It's become just so commercial. And of course, that's what they intended to be, because it's a company. They want to make money. I understand that. But it's just, turned into a greed fest, really.
Oh yeah.
Just like with the outrageous prices that you've published, Evan, on your page of these events are just ridiculous. Wrestling and like baseball and football and legitimate sports used to be for the average person to be able to afford. That was all there was at one time, like vaudeville, before TV, before radio. And now it's just so overblown, and I don't know. I mean, there's still people that stand out, and I commend them for that, being able to do that. I'm talking like, certain wrestlers, um, and I don't know. It's just so over the top. Like, there's certain things that they do that really bug me. For instance, they'll have a WrestleMania banner like about 3 months or more before WrestleMania, and every once in a while they'll cue the camera to go to a close up of the guy pointing with the shot of that. It's just so corny. When they make them do that. That I don't know why, but that particular thing bugs me. And the tables and the ladders and the chairs,
It's
the high
overkill.
spots for no reason at all. DDTs don't mean anything anymore. Used to be a finishing move.
Well, I've been
I
going
don't
back
know.
through old wrestling. I'm seeing a lot of matches that end in either a leg drop or an elbow drop as the
Yeah,
finish. And I like
yeah.
go, oh my God, if a match ended that way now, you'd have a riot. People would literally like tear the ring apart if they saw somebody finish with an elbow that didn't involve like 30 chair shots or somebody being lit on fire prior to that.
The problem is in the process of what they consider educating the fans, what to cheer for and what not to cheer for. They've just lost so much. They've lost ring psychology, in a lot of the matches. Um, the little moments that we used to see in wrestling, no matter where they were on the card. I think wrestlers don't get a real chance to really show their full personalities as much with such a crowded card.
I
With
do find it a little ironic because you're surrounded behind you with all these Mickey Mouse and Disney things. So you're obviously a big fan of Disney, which is like
and
the other evil corporation in the world.
I agree with you, and I've read some articles by Disney's granddaughter. She's disappointed in all this corporate stuff. Now, most of the stuff that I have are from my era. I was born in '56, and Disneyland came along in '55. Most of this stuff is
Walt
from
wasn't frozen then.
What's that?
Walt wasn't frozen then.
Well, he was never frozen. That's a myth. I've read many biographies of Disney. He wasn't anti-Semitic. He wasn't frozen. There's just all kinds of junk about him. Don't get me going about him. But
Oh, we got time in the show. You can get started on
well,
Walt
this
Disney.
is wrestling and everything. This is part of everything that we're doing now.
It is indeed. But
So, actually, I'm going to show one thing, and it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. My great grandmother designed that mural there. It says 1899. You see that? My great grandmother did that by hand. It was like a kit that you could buy in Lithuania.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, it is sort of ironic. I mean, I have the same complaints about Disney. All of entertainment has really morphed into something I think that traditionalists would not recognize or cheer about. I have a friend that I met on here. His name is Jason Merrick, and he's a collector of all kinds of entertainment paraphernalia and movies, and he restores old Captain Kangaroo episodes. and he's a big fan of Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, and he has an appreciation for all this stuff. I don't think he's a wrestling fan, but I think he would agree with me that entertainment in general, and I'll include wrestling in this, um, has, I'm starting to repeat myself, I guess, morphed into something that I think I'm not sure all fans would want to come along for the ride for.
If I dare interrupt you on that, I've seen the trend too, and maybe if I can put my finger on it, the idea is when things used to be made for entertainment, people would think, hey, is it entertaining first? And then they'd say, can we make money off of it? Now they're thinking, can we make money off of it? And they say, oh, by the way, it doesn't happen to be entertaining after all of that. But mostly, can we make money off of it? Not is it entertaining at first. The profit part is what they think about first before they think, is anyone going to care at all about this?
I'll go back to, I talked about the Hilltop restaurant where we took Bruno and a few other people. That restaurant failed because the people didn't care anymore. The original owners cared, and they lost it to a corporation that cared more about the bottom line than about pleasing their customers. And so, big favorites, they used to have free salads at one time. I realized that that's beyond economic as possibility as society has kind of changed economically. But they were served in a big bowl. There's certain things, the little sides that go along with a great steak. It was a steakhouse, first of all. One by one, they disappeared. And little by little, they lost their customer base. And that's what put them out of business, because they cared more about making money in the bottom line, the ledger sheet, than they did about being a restaurant. Same thing. Wrestling and Disney and movies care more about the money that they're bringing in than the product that they're promoting.
And Disney, I read, for a trip to Disneyland today, a family of 4, mom, dad, 2 kids, you're looking at about $6,000. $6,000.
I'd rather go to Europe.
Yeah, so you've outpriced a large chunk of the average working people. WrestleMania, the next WrestleMania, the cheapest seat is almost $900 in the nosebleeds. So there's certain people that they just don't have it. And a friend of mine said, I was talking to my buddy today, and he said his brother went to see a good R&B show. And it was Patti LaBelle, Shaka Khan, Stephanie Mills, and Gladys Knight. And I said, wow, I was there too. And he said, my brother spent $800 for one ticket. And I said, I spent $115. And I said, that's a lot for me. I don't usually spend even that much. But, you start talking $800 a pop. Not everybody has that for a night out. And that's one ticket. And that's before any other expenses are incurred. So, once the greed kicks in, you're reaching a point where you're eliminating some of your original fans, and that can't be good.
No. Or maybe the cost of what you go to a year's worth of matches, you can only go to one match now, for what you would save up for 10 concerts. Now you go to one concert instead. And that's why people are making those choices.
Or, as I always say, support indie everything. Go see a local band, that's a $10 or $20 cover where they appreciate you and value your coming down, and you meet them and you talk to them, and go to an indie wrestling show. Go to indie everything. Support indie everything, and I've seen $100 million movies that were horrendous, and I've seen movies shot on 100,000 that were masterpieces. So it's not even about the money and the commercialization of it all. You could do a masterpiece that cost a fortune of money. You could do a masterpiece on pennies. if you have the talent. The
Yeah.
Beastie Boys shot a movie with their cell phones,
Hmm.
literally with their cell phones. So you do not have to spend $100 million to make a quality film. The technology is there today.
The thing is, you're going to get a different audience. There's always going to be the audiences that were weaned on Vince's showmanship and the pyrotechnics and the lighting and all that stuff. They would turn their nose up at what we're talking about right now. But,
Yeah,
you know,
well,
there's an audience for both.
I'll tell you, it's also you as the parent, the uncle, the aunt, whatnot. My oldest friend, his nephew, by sheer coincidence, has the same birthday, 365 to one shot of that. My closest friend's nephew, the exact same birthday, but I'm older. So anyway, so we took this kid only to indie shows, Ring of Honor. We never took this kid to WWE. This kid grew up on indie wrestling and ROH, and to him ROH was like big time because they had named stars and it was
Yeah.
a higher level than the local indie down at the Elks Lodge or whatnot. But this kid loves wrestling, not so
Mhm.
much. I've never. Now the kid's in his early 20s. He's never mentioned to me that he's gone to a WWE show. So it's up to the parent to take the kid by the hand, take them to theater, music, whatever, and it doesn't have to be expensive and commercial. There's plenty of off Broadway theaters and whatnot, and there's plenty of free concerts in every major city. And the idea is, you know, teach the kids, and it's not just about supporting a ruthless, greedy corporation. Support the little guys.
True.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
Leonard, when reviewing your LinkedIn profile, because I was like, I haven't talked to you in 2 years. I want to make sure you've got credits in there for writing for Dark Side of the Ring, or you've contributed to.
Well, Dark Side of the Ring used my fabulous moolah footage, and they never asked me.
Oh wow, okay.
I did talk to somebody over there, I believe, and I just said whatever. I'm not going to make a big thing out of it. But I did, because of that and some other producers who didn't ask for my permission to show my stuff. I took everything down. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next to maybe relaunch Wrestling Talk on YouTube, and I don't know. I don't know.
I think we should turn that content into a great documentary. What do you think, Leonard?
It's possible. It's possible.
That's what we
I
that's what
was
we've
gonna
been talking
say,
about.
I guess maybe you don't have that positive view of Dark Side of the Ring, because I was gonna ask what.
No, I like the series. I do.
Oh, you
I
do?
like it.
Okay.
Hey Russ, it says Mark
I
Nowatarski
know.
is waiting.
I'm not expecting him to be here. You mind if I bring Mark Nowatarski in here, Leonard? I don't know if you know him.
I'm Facebook friends with her and him. I've never
He's a
met him in person.
filmmaker. He
Yeah,
did
hold
he did the
on.
I
Chic in
know.
Detroit documentaries.
He knows who
Hey,
I am. I
Mark.
know who he is.
Hey, Mark.
No,
Yeah,
I
nice
only
to
know
see
you
you.
as you travel under various aliases. And hello, gentlemen.
Hey
Yeah,
Mark,
Mark,
what's
this
up?
is a real surprise. We weren't expecting you for today's show. But you're welcome to be on. We got a few minutes. We can throw you in. Do you know Leonard Caplan? We've got Leonard Caplan here as our
Leonard,
added guest.
hello. We know each other through Evan, of course,
Yes,
and
yes.
you have expressed your kindness and consideration to my wife also, and I thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And
So,
Evan, hello. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound like I'm ignoring you. And happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you.
so Mark, what can we do for you? We're really sad. I didn't invite you. I've never had somebody
No,
literally drop in on our show in the middle of our show.
somebody did invite me,
I,
and
I
it
honestly,
came under your name. It came under Russ Jackman.
well, that is a real surprise. I must have
No,
accidentally.
that's not a problem. That's because this is unexpected, and I was in the preparatory stages of doing something. So no, I accepted because knowing it was you, and then when I saw the about Leonard, it's like something's going on. So no.
It must have been like what
That
you
was
would consider,
Russ's evil twin.
yeah, or a butt dial.
I think
No,
you've
no,
been hacked.
that's not a problem.
No, stay with us. We only have like 15 minutes left.
Yeah,
Oh,
and please, if you want to mention your departed wife's memorial, and if people want to contribute, we're more than happy to help raise more funds if possible.
well, thank you. But gentlemen, please inform me what's going on. What am I involved with here?
We were belly aching about the price of WWE and how
And Disneyland and Disney World, the prices are
and
beyond,
just and
regular
high
family.
prices and high profitability don't equal a quality product. That's our basic.
Gentlemen, I can only speculate what you've been conversing about, but the average guy or the average person, excuse me, no way can afford anything that of what you've described, be it Disneyland, be it wrestling events. I mean, my goodness,
Concerts, sports.
Another, yeah.
Mark, does that mean you're not picking us up $70,000 VIP tickets for WrestleMania?
Regretfully, I do have to pass on that.
We'll pay for the hot dogs.
70,000. I'm not joking. It is. It's literally $70,000.
We'll buy you a hot dog if you take us.
I can only laugh at that. I mean, my $70,000.
First row VIP, WrestleMania, Vegas.
I can't even imagine something like that. That's more than than the value of my home.
I wouldn't
That's
pay
the sad
$70 to go to a WWE show.
The
No.
sad truth is probably some people, as Evan was saying, that we'll probably find out that to go to the next WrestleMania, probably some people, take out 4 or 5 credit cards and put it,
at least.
And then they're going to
even
Saudi
imagine.
Arabia the next year. Imagine what that's going to cost.
Well, I could only guess that it'll be SRO with Middle Easterners.
It'll probably be just like 1 or 2 princes sitting there in entire sections all by themselves, like stretching themselves out as far as they can, make it look more full. But one of them can probably buy, $200,000 worth of seats all for themselves and their family. And the rest of the WWE fans that, hadn't missed the WrestleMania their whole lives are going to be watching on, premium live events, however that's going to work, and realize that they've been priced out, because TKO wants to make their $8 billion investment back now. They don't want to wait, several years.
All right, so Russ, we have a panel full of filmmakers. I have a big question for everybody. What makes a great wrestling film?
Nice.
Documentary, movie, whatever the case may be. Because there's not a lot of them. You could count them on maybe 2 hands total.
Iron Claw, 350 Days.
Night in the City. The original Night in the City is a masterpiece, film noir.
And The Wrestler, of course.
Thank you. What do you guys consider? How do you make a great wrestling film?
It's a very good question.
I'll volunteer the first answer, even though I'm not a director. Is especially in The Wrestler, the believability of the emotion behind it, the fact that you can feel what the wrestler feels. It's not so much the in-ring action, because I find that's one thing that doesn't come across on film that well, is the in-ring action. It always does feel kind of fake, but like in the Iron Claw, the believability, especially the guy who played Fritz von Erich, and how just brutal his emotionality is towards his own sons. And we know because of what a disaster the whole Von Erich family was, that he was a terrible person, and they were able to convey that. And also just Mickey Rourke's character in The Wrestler, just you believed it. You believed that's who he was. And if you believe that, that is something that sells through better than, high flying action and trying to capture everything that goes on in the ring. What do you guys think?
At one of the film festivals, I was talking to Mickey and I said, what do you think of the film? And he says to me, quote, I can't watch it. It reminds me of my life. So that's why it's believable, because he was feeling it. He went from top box office star in the 80s to direct to video, his star had waned. So, he wasn't living in a trailer park by any means, but I'm just saying.
He knows what it's like to lose fame. He knows what it's like to lose fame. Yeah. That's the most painful thing in the world. That's any wrestler can tell you. The loss of fame hurts worse than any physical injury that you get. Because you can take drugs to mask the pain, but you can't take drugs to replicate the loss of fame.
You sold out Madison Square Garden, and now you're pushing a broom. It's brutal.
So that's what killed my friend Crash Holly. The loss of fame killed my friend Crash Holly. Wow. He couldn't handle what life was like outside of the WWE after being at such great heights. Mark, your thoughts? And then
certainly it is any number of things, as I believe it was Leonard that may have mentioned. Content from, I would have to say, and from my own experiences, something that is from the heart, naturally, and not something that would look set up. Going after and using the word heart specifically, touching people, pushing those buttons, and hopefully the combination producer, director, writer are all, no pun intended, on the same page.
Editor,
they know what they're going after.
Very important. Yeah.
Know what they're going after. But if you are true and sincere, whoever you may be in making a production, you will find, I believe anyway, that you will find your audience, your niche, and you will be complimented on it.
Speaking of heart, there was a documentary on the Montreal screw job, and Bret Hart was obviously being interviewed at the same time, showing scene after scene of the actual event. And it was so moving, you felt like when you were watching it that you were going through it with him. That's how moving it was. So I can't tell you, it's a long time since I have seen that, but I was in the theater seeing that, and it just that blew me away, and I felt so badly for Bret Hart.
The Peanut Butter Falcon is another one of those films that doesn't try to overshoot itself. It doesn't try to hit you over the head with the action in it. And yet, man, is it genuine, is it straight, and it doesn't treat its audience like idiots. It doesn't talk down to its audience. It just goes right ahead and tells its story. And I loved the Peanut Butter Falcon.
Great movie, and the wrestling fans didn't support it because it wasn't just wrestling. Yeah.
And then another thing I think that makes a successful wrestling documentary is when the producers themselves and the interviewers are real wrestling fans themselves. There's nothing worse than trying to watch something that it's just produced by people that aren't fans and they don't know anything about it. It's just embarrassing to watch.
That describes the WWE products currently. Because it's made by people who are not, they're comedy writers, and they're people that do soap operas and that write, dramas and things like that. They're not wrestling fans first. They're wrestling fans because they have to be, because that's their job to be wrestling fans. None of us are wrestling fans because that's our job. We were wrestling fans first and found things to do that involve wrestling because to involve the things that we love. And I think that's what kills all of us, is watching people who don't love the product at all are in charge of it, and people who are in love with the product are being priced out and pushed away and being told, hey, you're not, this isn't for you anymore. This is a new generation's worth of stuff, and you guys stay away because you don't bring the profit like these other folks do.
I would have to agree. It's so sad and unfortunate, and I'm trying to undercut it. How the world of professional wrestling today, and it's not just today. And gentlemen, you know, I'm sure better than I, has very little to do with wrestling anymore. It's about, just as Russ, you have said, bottom line, profit. It's very shameful, I feel.
Also, it talks down to you. It's Dominic Mysterio. Is he going to walk out with Rhea Ripley, or is he going to walk out with Liv? This is like sixth grade stuff. This is like geared towards 12-year-olds. This isn't Bruno's protege turning on him and blooding him, which was almost like biblical proportions, And we were stunned. It's like, oh my God, Larry Zbyszko attacked Bruno. I mean, it's Dominic.
It was the first time someone had done something like that, and they built that up over a year's worth of time. To make that happen. Nobody, and we were talking about this last week, no one wants to invest a year's worth of time to tell a storyline anymore. It's more, get the storyline in, get it out, get on to the next story, because we got another Raw to do, we got another SmackDown to do, we got another pay-per-view to do, and we got to just keep running through these stories as fast as we can in a week, what normally would take a year to make a real build and a real blow-off, and then make the blow-off satisfactory enough that you're ready for that wrestler to move on to a different challenge and a different feud and stuff like that. Instead, tell me like 4 feuds that are going on in the WWE right now. You can't, because they don't last long enough to even qualify them as feuds. They're just matches. Now, that's, to me, the problem, is that there isn't, when I think of like the Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Tito Santana feud for the Intercontinental title, those were epic matches, ones that I stood up watching my television and shouting at like Greg the Hammer Valentine or at Tito Santana, because I really wanted Tito Santana to win. I really didn't want Greg the Hammer Valentine to win. I cared, because they built up that feud correctly over a long period of time, had the right kind of turns and everything. Now that's not even a concern. And I'm sorry to harp on this and step on all you guys, because it hits me so emotionally. But hey, it's my show, so I can take a stand like that. But all of us old folks, we're all in agreement with, we're OGs, I guess. We're all in agreement that there's this satisfaction of the product's not there, and I don't know how it's going to last. I don't know how this sort of thing can sustain itself immeasurably over time.
Well, gentlemen, if I may, and the three of you will probably be able to confirm and give more validity than I, but people of today's generation, and possibly even the generation before us, their attention spans, going to longevity of, setting something up for 6 months, for a year or longer. You're lucky if it's 38 seconds, and you're kissing the ground if it's 38 seconds. They forget. They need to be constantly have that fuse lit.
Instant gratification.
But Mark, is it a chicken and the egg argument? Is it the fact that people expect that because that's all that's given to them now? So is it the kind of thing, can people take something and live with a long fuse on something like that? Leonard, what's your thought?
Well, as I say, a lot of people have grown up. I was just examining my Facebook profile, and I have students that I had like in 2005, and they're 25, years later or whatever, WWE pretty much brought up the current crop of wrestling fans in their style, so they're not going to accept anything that they consider less. They want the pyrotechnics. They're blinded by that and by the lighting
The
and
entrances.
the entrances, you know, and exactly. And it's just, I don't think you can make them go back to the other way after that because they're
True.
spoiled, you
True.
know.
I would probably have to agree also. Thank you, Leonard. If you get used to something, it has almost become habitual. If you go back to what we are accustomed to, with some bulk, with some content, with some thought, with some psychology,
Mhm.
the potentiality of the average fan, or maybe the ones with the money that are spending the money in excess, would get bored. Therefore, if they get bored, they won't buy. If they won't buy, we can't do this anymore. We got to go back to the snap and pop.
Mhm.
I'm just wondering if people may go retro and just say, you know what, we've seen all of that for so long that actually going back the other way is intriguing because it's something different than what they're going to get so bored with. I don't see how this kind of snap and constant fireworks is going to be something that can sustain itself. And 10 years from now, people aren't going to say, I've gotten tired of this, you know, and I've gotten tired of this kind of like repetitive sing along stuff. And instead, you know, maybe I do want a match where I'm not sure who's going to win, and it doesn't have a 20-minute intro of people coming to the ring. It's actually, you know, 30 seconds of somebody coming to the ring and 10, 20 minutes of action in the ring instead of 20 minutes getting to the ring and 2 or 3 minutes of actual ring action. So I hate to say it, guys, we're out of time for the show. And Mark, I do apologize. I'd want to have you here from the very beginning. It was, I think, it's a butt dial type thing with the invite may have gone out. I didn't intend to, but I'm so glad to have you here. Please talk about what you can do, what people can do for your wife. I know there's still you're doing the memorial for her already, but there's still time people can contribute and help.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. My wife, Maria, recently passed away. She passed away August the 2nd, 1 week before her birthday. And I am out here in California, Southern California, San Diego. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And things out here, Russ, as you may be able to attest, there's a different thought pattern and different economics to the extreme. And several friends of mine, Evan, yourself, Russ, Leonard, you also among them, have been kind enough. There has been a GoFundMe project that has been started to help me do Maria's final arrangements. There is going to be an actual funeral mass for her on Halloween. So just in several days, it's going to be at St. Jude Roman Catholic Church in San Diego. My next step in her final wishes is to get a gravestone with the etching, with the writing, her photo on it, and interment for her. The GoFundMe has been spread by a number of people. Evan among them, Russ, I believe you have, Leonard, well, everybody here has contributed in some way, shape, or form. You can find, ladies and gentlemen, if you would be kind enough to consider assisting me in carrying out Maria's wishes and preserving her memory and her legacy, please go to Facebook. Facebook, the first I would suggest would be Evan's page, personal page. Also, Evan's old school
Wrestling memories. Yeah.
wrestling memories page. My page. My name is Mark, Mark, Nowotarski, that's Nowotarski. I have made a number of announcements regarding the progression of Maria's preservation and her final arrangements. If you could, there will be an announcement made either tomorrow, Monday, or Tuesday, reminding people about the funeral service. Evan, if you would be kind enough to put up any number of the announcements with the GoFundMe, naturally.
Absolutely, sure.
Thank you. And I will, as I say, if not tomorrow, Tuesday, at the absolute latest. I don't know who's going to be arriving in person. There was a very, very low turnout to Maria's celebration of life. It was disappointing in that sense, but the people that were there came, and using that term again, from the heart. And
Learn who your friends are in this life.
Agreed. And
Tough way to find out.
gentlemen, you are among those friends, and I
Thank you, Mark.
thank you for that more than I can ever tell you. And I mean
Well,
that.
I hope our listeners can help out in some way. And Leonard, why don't you give your plug for anything you want to plug right now?
I've got nothing to plug, to be honest with you. Right now, I'm taking a hiatus because I've retired from my teaching job, and I'm still trying to orient myself to this new world and decide what I really want to put my time in. So nothing right now, but maybe soon.
Definitely keep us informed. And as I've always said, if you bring your show back and you totally run out of guests, I'm available. So I love to do anybody's show if they run out of guests. So, but people could get a hold of you through Facebook, couldn't they? And LinkedIn, Leonard.
Yes.
Okay, so great. They look for you, Leonard and Aaron Caplan, on both platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad to have both of you guys on again. It's a great surprise to have you, Mark. I hope you get good response and get maybe a few more people to contribute. Oh, good. Now, we don't see it like you're at the end of a cave or something. Yes, and well, that's it for the show. So we'll see everybody next week, and we definitely want to have you on again, Leonard, before 2 years, and we'll have you on again, Mark, too, soon. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see everybody next week. Goodbye, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Mark.